All right. Welcome to RWX Rob. I am going to do a video that I don't particularly enjoy doing, but this has been grating on me since yesterday. I had somebody in the stream actually say, and I put this in the quote for this knowledge node, "There's too much talking here." Well, it's true. There is too much talking. It is YouTube after all, or, Twitch. That's what it's about, right? It's about chat and talking and all of that stuff. Obviously, we want to have more action involved. In that particular case, I'm kind of bummed because I was describing how to get Linux and why you might want a different version of Linux and, giving people the information they need to make a decision. I could have sat here for the whole time and showed you how to install Linux, and, that's, I suppose, informational. But it's not nearly the kind of information that an autodidact needs. Somebody who owns their learning and pushes forward and does the work to learn on their own. So actually, it bothered me so much. I mean, I didn't dwell on it, but I woke up this morning and my brain was churning, and I was like, you know what? This is like there's another time somebody said something about people not wanting to be in person to be taught with this whole COVID thing. There's a lot of people that are struggling with that, and that was kind of churning in my head. I'm like, what is it about some people that have so much trouble learning? And then it really just came to me. My wife and I were talking, and we're like, it's about intellectual laziness. It's about being a lazy learner. It's about having say to you, hey, let me Google that for you, which is actually a website, which I'll go look at in a second. So I actually am going to run down some points. It's kind of one of those, chintzy lists that people put on YouTube about, 10 ways to not be a lazy learner. Yeah, whatever. This just turned out to be the form of a list that I can go through and I can put on stream. And it should be a relatively short video. I don't know. I never know. I refuse to promise how long the video is going to be anymore because I always get it wrong. So what you're looking at, by the way, this is YAML, and it is a markup language where you can capture your knowledge in an organized way. It's also used for configuration files and stuff, in case you're wondering what I'm writing it in. I'm doing this so that I can convert it using Pandoc very nicely into a pretty little web page or an EPUB or whatever. If you want to know more about that, look for any videos or any content at all about knowledge as source. It's probably my primary focus in life right now. So sometimes understanding how to become one thing means that you have to understand what that thing is not. Here's a list of characteristics and behaviors you will find in an anti-autodidact, a lazy learner who would rather make excuses than do the real work to learn on their own. And this includes me, by the way. I'm going to throw myself under the bus here. I wish my wife were here. She would say, "Amen." So yesterday, I'm gonna share something very embarrassing. So I was doing some sort of bank thing, and I I can't say it. I couldn't remember my address. Because I don't send a lot of actual snail mail, and we've only been here 2 years, so. And so, what does TNR mean? I'll talk about that in a second. One is a topical lazy learner. Does it include cheaters? Yes, it does. And so we have, in fact, maybe you guys have some better ideas for me. So let me finish this quick little story and I'll tell you about the rest. So yesterday I'm working on the bank's something. I can't remember. Some tax notification came through the banks, needed more information. One of the things it needed was a correct address. And I had the old address, which, is 3 years old, 2 years old. And we'll talk about it. And then the next thing that happened was I was like looking it up and I couldn't remember it exactly. And, I could have looked it up. I could have gone in. I have it even stored. I have my address stored in my notes and stuff. I could have looked it up, and instead, what did I do? I bet you can guess. Hey, honey, what's our address? I did that. I'm so embarrassed that I did that. I was totally lazy. And I said, what's our address? And she was downstairs. I had to yell. I'm so mortified with embarrassment. I had to yell all the way downstairs. Sound travels pretty well in our house. And so I asked her, I said, what is our address? Can you tell me? And he goes, 385. She goes, I can't hear you. I was like the worst human being ever at that moment. And she was actually really patient with me. She told me, and then of course I forgot, right? Because it was temporary memory. So I asked again, was that an 8? She goes, I can't hear you. Come down here. So she comes marching. She come. So again, I'm not pointing fingers here, except for at me too. So she comes marching up the stairs, boom, 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 and you can imagine how it goes, right? So she looks around in my room for a second, and she finds a piece of mail that's literally arm's length away from me that I didn't see, that I didn't think to look for because I was so lazy. And she grabs the piece of mail that's right next to me and she hands it to me and sticks it in front of my face, doesn't say anything, and walks away. It's like she knew the shame of my actions had just become really, really obvious. And I wanted to say, is that if anybody else has ever had a loved one or a friend say, seriously, dude, do you need me to Google that for you? Do you need me to research that for you? Do you really not know, or are you just too lazy to look it up? And I mean, we've probably all done it at one point or another. And I'm really sad to say that I did it as recently as yesterday. So when I write these things down, this list, I am not pointing a finger at anybody. There was somebody in the chat yesterday who reminded me of it, and I was like, really? Stack Overflow, right? Yeah, go do Stack Overflow, go do whatever. In fact, there's a lot of people who spend, this is another reason it's sensitive to me. There's a lot of people, including myself, who spend an amazing amount of their own personal time writing things on Wikipedia, writing knowledge bases, answering Aaron, for example. Aaron, he does a lot. He's high ranked over there on Stack Overflow, Stack Exchange. There's a lot of people who spend a lot of time to answer questions. And when our own laziness takes away the fact that we could have gotten to that information, it just frustrates the crap out of all the people who put all the work into doing that. That's why teachers get so angry at you when you ask dumb questions. And there's no dumb question. We know that. Do you know what the dumb questions are? They're lazy questions. They're the questions that you just had to go to the index in the back of the book and look up. That's intellectual laziness. That's lazy learning. And none of us should do it. We should never do it. We do it all the time, but we shouldn't. And we need to stop. It's like, oh, I'll just watch this YouTube video. And so I want to go over the characteristics of lazy learning so that you can identify them in yourself. At least favorite gigs are also involve people not ready for anything. The users, yes. Some of my easiest gigs involve just going to a business and saying RTFM. You know what? It's funny because I actually have a business. So I'm going to say something that some might think would jeopardize my future. I don't think it will at all. But the truth is, you don't need to pay me for private mentoring. You don't need to pay anybody for private mentoring. And well, I just need the motivation and I need this, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's fine. But once you actually Control C, Control V, there you go. Once people actually learn the skills, the true skills of an autodidact, the internet is a thing. There might have been a time before when you needed, now, okay, so to be fair, I don't want to throw everybody under the bus. Some of the reasons that our YouTubers exist and our streamers is because they have an immense amount of experience. For example, Mr. Orologist comes to mind. I love that streamer. This is a guy who, practices a very sort of ancient craft of like working with watches and fixing them, sort of at the microscopic level. And I just absolutely love that he streams on Twitch. Watching him just like, I could sit and watch him just work forever. Because why? Because, well, partially because I'm a descendant of a Swiss watchmaker, but also because I just think it's so stinking cool that he's sharing what he does with the rest of us. And so, that's a mentor like that. That makes sense. There's somebody who has experience. They can maybe tweak your direction and all that stuff. And of course, those kind of people are not going to put up with laziness. How many times have you seen, fictional portrayals of like a mentor and a student, like Karate Kid or something, where they're like helping them out, and they don't want them to be lazy. Strictly speaking, they want them to do the work, to do the practice and do the reading and the research. Okay, so let's like list off all these items. So you guys are asking what the T and the P is about. This is just, the T stands for a topical sentence. You remember that from English, and a P stands for a paragraph. And this is something I call a paralist, which is a knowledge node format type. And that just is a way that I've sort of a way that I organize data. It's one of my many format types that I can then render in different ways depending on how it's being rendered, whether it's an app or an HTML page or something like that. So this is my personal sort of data model for this specific type of data, where you have a paragraph with a topical sentence, usually in bold, and followed by that. So I could have done it in HTML, I could have done it in Markdown, but I just did YAML, which is Markdown, by the way. It's YAML front matter is included as a part of Markdown. There's other videos on that. All right, so that's what the T and the P are. You guys were asking. So let's just go through these really quickly. I feel like I've told too many stories. Let me grab a little bit of coffee before we get into it. Wonderful coffee. You guys got your coffee? All right. So lazy learners are bored and confused by words. And you know what I mean, right? And if it's hard for you to look inside at yourself, you can probably, well, why don't we do this? Why don't I encourage you to both look outward and inward? Like, look at yourself and the times you've done it, but it's also sometimes instructive for you, and it's usually easier to find other people you know who do this, right? But don't tell yourself that you're immune from it, because you're not. And if you do that, you're going to just feed your Dunning-Kruger effect, which is you don't know that you don't know. I feel attacked, right? Laziness defines me. The laziest programmers are the best programmers. That is a thing, but it's not the same thing. So we're going to keep going here. So they are bored and confused by words in general. So a lot of times when you're dealing with a lazy learner, they are so bored or that they will just let the words wash over them, and they won't understand, and they won't look them up, and they won't ask for help. They'll just be stunned and let it pass over them, and they don't learn anything. The more words, the more they check out, spoken or written. Most have a ridiculously low vocabulary and don't even know how many words that they don't understand in any given conversation. I know people might feel attacked by that, but I have encountered this over and over again when people they don't know what basic words are. And I'm not trying to be offensive there, but they're like basic words from a Harry Potter novel. I know now you feel offended, right? And triggered because I said Harry Potter. But like, it's almost like they haven't even got a 6th grade level of reading. And you know what's really sad? I run into this more now than I've ever run into it before. It's starting to become a thing. And in fact, I'm going to say it. My wife sent me a thing that showed all of the misspellings that are going on in some of the protests right now. And Lord knows I'm not the best speller, but I mean, we're talking like seriously bad spelling words that they had no business doing. Basic literacy is in decay, and I think everybody can see that. And I think it's actually one of the biggest symptoms of the biggest problem in the world. Knowledge is decaying. Education is decaying. And when knowledge and education go, you're left with an idiocracy, and and people who have power and money control more and more, but they're also dumber. So then you end up getting really horrible things that are happening in the world. And I'm just going to say it. I think that's the reason we're at where we're at. I think the fundamental foundational problem of where we are isn't about this or that class or this or that person. It's about just an overall lack of basic literacy and knowledge. And I just, the system is designed to pump out factory workers. I just, I'm not targeting, and because we're going to get down to something else here, which is blame. We'll talk about that. Hey, Gabe. So there we go. So they're bored and confused by words in general. They don't like them. They tend to not read. They would rather watch a video than read. I run into this constantly, and I don't think that's just a generational thing. I do think that the internet generations have been influenced by this, but there's people in the internet generation who love to read. And I'm not talking about just reading through a 100,000 page book. I'm talking about basic reading to get your own answers. Is people are okay with it? Yeah, and they are. And that's kind of, in fact, they're not only okay with it. So there's a famous scene in Idiocracy where anybody who reads is called a fag. And there's so many things wrong with that. I mean, it's almost like watching Idiocracy now. You have a really hard time laughing at it because so much of it is true. But anybody who reads it goes like, "Oh, you read? Oh, what are you, a fag? Oh, you a fag?" Everybody who reads is a fag. And we see this institutionally. We see people with power all over the place saying that education is the root of all evil, and by I suppose, association reading. My wife has a shirt that says "Make America Read Again," and I think that that's part of the problem. So I've dwelt on this a lot. But if you find yourself being annoyed by words, by not wanting to look up words, by not wanting to read because there's too many words, by saying things like this, there's too much talk here, there's too much talk, then you might want to look inside and say, what am I doing that I could change to be a better, learner, to start, digesting words in order to learn. Words are the meal you have to eat in order to get the nutrients. You cannot, that's why RWX. You read, I'm going to talk about this full video on this later. You read, you research, you take in stuff, knowledge, and then you write it and wonder about it. That means you're writing it down and you're digesting it. And writing is a big process of digesting intellectually what it is that you've taken in and making sense of it and knowing about, what you think about it, wondering about how it could be done differently. That's the W, that's the writing. We're going to get to that. And then the X is like executing, doing some action on it. So you've taken in knowledge, you've processed it through, writing about it and wondering about it. And then you've executed, you've done some sort of, exercise with it. You've done something, you've executed on the knowledge. That's RWX. So reading is a fundamental, and we got to do it. Otherwise, and if you don't like reading, start liking it. And maybe you can't read. If you can't read, you need to look at it. All right. So, reading Wikipedia as a source of information. Well, that's a good point. Wikipedia is tough to read. It's pretty dense. I never read it from beginning to end. I generally don't do that. I generally read enough to add it to a collection of other sources that I have to create enough information. Honestly, it depends on what I'm reading about, right? So, and that's another thing we're going to get to later is autodidacts don't like answers that say it depends. Okay, we're going to get there. Let me get to the next ones. So, and this is a little bit harsh to say. I wrote this one because I was a little bit impatient. But I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with Wikipedia. My biggest gripe about Wikipedia versus other knowledge bases that have opinions and centralized voices and books, for example, is that Wikipedia is fundamentally about this antagonistic relationship between all of the authors. It's like they are constantly vying for attention and acceptance. And while that might help us get the most consensus, same problem on Stack Exchange, while that might help us arrive at some consensus, it may not be the right information. And usually innovation in particular is not popular when it comes out. And so the voices of innovation, the dissenting voices are being squelched by things like, agreement wins in Wikipedia or best likes in Stack Exchange, or most upvoted answer. So that kind of stuff is just not cool. And that stuff is what's killing innovation. Somebody who might have the best possible answer that no one is even thinking about yet because it's so innovative is being completely and totally ignored because their answers are down there with the rest of the absolutely stupid answers. And so you have to, read it and think about it critically on your own using your own criteria. Going one place and getting all the right answers and just trusting that is kind of lazy. In that sense, I think Wikipedia is a little lazy. You need to, have multiple sources and then arrive at your own conclusions based on evaluating them. And that takes time, man. That takes time. So anyway, yeah. I do think WordPress and Stack Exchange are a good start, but I don't think that they're definitive. I also don't think they should be banned from schools. Schools will ban WordPress. They'll ban like Wikipedia and things like that. And then they'll have a super outdated, horrible textbook that they're using instead. And I'm like, why would you do that? So it's all about multiple sources and evaluating those sources based on a set of criteria and teaching people how to do critical thinking. And those are all things that are not being taught in school. They're not being taught in school, unfortunately. And I'm not just railing on the schools. They're just, I'm not encountering them. People are not telling us, they're not teaching us how to think critically and how to evaluate things. At least if they are doing it, I'm not hearing about it. So I really hope that changes. Okay, let's keep going. I'm only on point number 2 here. They don't have the capacity or motivation to figure things out. And I put capacity here not to be mean, but to say you have to be aware. Okay, so some people who are lazy learners are actually not lazy learners. They're actually dealing with handicaps or deficiencies. So I Absolutely. I've actually encountered several of these guys as well. I mean that because they were guys. Um, and they can't learn. They have a learning deficiency in some area. They have a reading deficiency. These are actual capacity problems that are stopping them from doing it. And it's not about desire, and it's not about, it's certainly not about desire or work ethic. It's about actual ability. So, I make fun of saying things like idiocracy and stuff, but I do not want to make anybody who struggles with a learning disability to think that I'm grouping them in the same thing. I do get a little triggered by people who are lazy. It's different. It's different if you're lazy from being, unable to do it. So some of these points I put here, they don't have the capacity or motivation to figure things out. So they just don't want to search it. They say stuff like, oops, I swore there. I shouldn't put that there. They say stuff like, I don't get it, or it's not working, or I don't get it. That's my favorite one. I don't get it. Mr. Rob, I don't get it. Or Mr. Rob, it's not working. What's not working? Well, it's just not working. Look, this thing's broken. I did what you told me and it's not working. The stupid computer won't do what I'm told it to do. I mean, how many times have you encountered this, right? And yes, I'm pretending like I'm a young person because young people haven't matured into their learning ability a lot of times. And that doesn't make them any less than any other. I've heard adults do effectively the same thing. Yeah, generally I went out to sleep, but I don't get the job done fast. Right. Or they'll say something like, what is this? What's happening? I don't get it. And they also tend to ask, give me flashbacks of the TA days. Yeah, Gabe was a TA. So like, what is happening? They ask a lot of questions during movies. This is just kind of a fun little jab there. They generally like, what, they want you to explain things to them rather than enjoy it. And I think it's because it's been so ingrained. I think some of it's just personality, but I think a lot of it is just because they're very smart people who talk through movies too. I'm not saying very, non-lazy people who do that too. So that's a personality thing. But they also are people who just don't want to sit and do their own, personal evaluation. Okay, let's keep going. They want to be in the same space with people who do learn. Anybody, it's not so much now, but how many of you have, how many of you have had somebody constantly come into your cubicle and ask you a question that they could have researched on their own? Anybody ever have that? Or you have somebody who says, yeah, or you have somebody who just absolutely, freaking everybody. Veganville, hey, welcome. So how many of you got that? How many of you had that sort of thing? Like it's sad. So many people function like this is sad. As a full-time pen tester daily, especially basic system questions, right? They just never. I'm Dutch. Oh, thank you for that comment. That's perfect. So I need to turn up the comments because you guys are making some great comments here. So, we all know what I'm talking about, right? How many of you have been that person? I have. I know I have. I just did it yesterday. What's my address, Doris? Right. So, and actually you can take it as a compliment, because that means that they think that you are somebody who learns, somebody who knows, and someone who's going to get all the answers. And either they don't know how to do that, or they can't do it, or they want to feel safe because they know that you're around and you'll catch them if they can't figure stuff out. It's not working, or just another way to say, I need inspiration. I need an inspiring restaurant visit. Of course, I have because I was lazy and sleepy. Yes. Until I realized everyone Googles for stuff. Yes. Well, there are two people like this. One, people who just want to be around them to focus and don't ask questions. The people that you're describing. Yes. And so I guess we could distinguish. This is not people who gather energy from the presence of other smart people. That's the whole point of co-working spaces, right? Whatever you think of them, or even coffee shops. It's the same reason that I love New York. New York's having trouble right now, and thank God it's recovering. But I used to love going to New York and sitting in this coffee shop, not because I could ask everybody questions, but because I could just feed off the energy of all of the ambition and work ethic and conversations in this space. It's because it's not Wikipedia, right? So my point is, it's important that you distinguish the people who are sucking. My wife used the word mooches. which is kind of mean and harsh, but it's true. People who want to mooch your talent off of you, get your ideas off of you, and then move on. And sometimes that can be, very physical presence or something. But the point is that Pearl. Okay, so anyway, family member asked me what computer to get and how to spec it out. I just told them get a Mac. And that's pretty much a punt from somebody who does their own research, right? And I've done that too. When it started acting up, then I asked how to fix it. I told them I don't know how to fix it because I never had a Mac. That's brilliant. Gabe's actually got a really great story of when he went to go help somebody set up their Wi-Fi, which I wish he could share with us vocally. Maybe he can come in sometime and share. But it was so funny. So yeah, it's sometimes it's about them not knowing, but it's not just about them not knowing. It's about them not knowing and also not wanting to know, because it's too much work, right? That's what I pay you for. How many people have heard that? That's what I pay you for. And that usually happens when you're the pocket tech for somebody else. How many of you have been identified as a pocket tech for someone who doesn't want to do any learning, just wants to be told what to do? Yep, you know what I'm talking about, right? I know one guy in person that was my neighbor some years back. He actually was very rich from being identified as the pocket tech architect for a CTO who didn't know crap. And he would turn to him and ask him everything, and he made him very comfortable, and he made the CTO very successful, and he was okay with that relationship. It's like, like having a TF2 pocket medic, in your pocket. And so, yeah, so some people will do it because they're lazy. Some people because they want power or whatever. So this is a fun one. I put down that lazy learners love mythology and Marvel movies. I know I'm going to get painful. I'm going to get hate mail from this. So they don't have to think. They don't have to imagine. There are fewer words to confuse them. They just plug in and go for the ride. This is also why they hate reading, role play, and sandbox video games. And I know them as fighting words, but I just thought it was funny. I'm kind of poking fun here. But seriously, usually the same people who hate learning and reading also hate games that cause them to think. Like if you have them sit down and play Dungeons and Dragons or something like that, and you say, what do I do? You say you can do anything. What do you mean I can do anything? You need to think about the situation and come up with something to do. What? What do I move? What button do I press? How do I run? Who do I kill? What's the combo? You know what I mean? There is no combo. You just do stuff. It's a big game where you run around and build things creatively. What? What do I do? I don't know what to do. This is this dumb game. Minecraft is stupid. It's like people who don't like learning or who are, lazy learners will tend to not like those same things. That's just my thing. That's Fortnite, man. Don't get me started on that. We're going to have to make it clear that I am not fixing system administration problems. My pen testing takes up too much time, especially the research that goes, exactly. Because pen testers are fantastic system administrators, aren't they? It's funny because by trade, I was a system administrator, and now I'm moving into pen testing as kind of a hobby, but yeah, lots that goes on there. Now, this is going to really get me in trouble. They are prone to religion and tutorials, which are pretty much the same thing. I know, you're going to hate me for saying that. Religion and tutorials are kind of the same thing. So a lot of people disagree with this, but to me, religion is in many ways is a tutorial for life. It's like if you do these things and follow these rules and these commandments, that you'll be, you'll make it through life just fine, and you'll go to heaven, and you don't need to worry about it. There's probably 1,000 people who are going to send me hate mail over that thing. And I'm talking, you know what I'm talking about. Sarab is now a god. I'm not a god. I'm not saying that I am a god. I'm saying that God helps them who help themselves. Right, so there's a religious saying, a couplet from my time as a Mormon. People used to tell me all the time. But no, most of the time, the point I'm trying to make here is people want to be told what to do. They don't want to figure out what to do. They want to be told what to do. I'll say it, I'm a god. They want to be told this is exactly how you need to do this to succeed. They don't want to be told, well, that depends. That depends on you. That depends on your life situation. That depends on what you want to get out of your Linux distro. Just tell me what Linux distro to use. And that takes us into the next one. They ask lazy questions. So I can't tell you how many times I've heard these lazy questions. What distro should I use? I should probably change that. What distro should I use? What distro should I use? Which window manager is the best? What certificate do I need? What college should I attend? What religion should I join? What should I eat? I mean, people are doing that. What diet should I follow? They are always looking for that quick fix and being told what will work for them rather than figuring out for themselves how to do it. And the fact of the matter is that 9 times out of 10, unless there's some really good science behind it, a lot of these answers are, it depends. What distro do I use? It depends, right? It's like... That's fine, guys. We're all autodidacts sometimes, so it's like a good way to get to which matter should I best. I don't know. It depends on you. Are you a terminal user, or are you graphics? Are you going to do video editing? It depends. What certificate do I need to get? You know what? I don't know. It depends on the job you're going for. If you're gonna be the CEO of a company, maybe not get a certificate. If you're gonna be an actor, maybe not a certificate. If you're gonna be a software developer, maybe not a certificate. If you're gonna be a pen tester for the government, maybe get a certificate. It depends. It depends. Yeah. If it's really an XY problem, right? What college should I attend? It depends. What kind of things do you want to study? I don't know. Which religion should I join? I mean, honestly, which religion should I join? Which one's the most right? Which one's going to get me to heaven? Which one is going to cause, what do I value? They even ask, what is it that I value? What should I value? What should I eat? This one is really popular. Again, they would rather have a recipe than analyze every situation. The truth is, Unix is religion. There is no way to get through most of life's questions with a pat specific answer. And if you keep dealing in specific answers, you're going to end up in trouble. For example, my family has a lot of diabetes in their family. If I follow a diet that my wife follows or that somebody else follows, it would almost kill me. And my aunt, who is diabetic, would die. My wife is deathly allergic to fish. If it comes even near her, she's got an EpiPen in her leg and we're rushing her to the hospital. So again, what should I eat? It depends. It depends on you. Everybody's body is different. We all have different metabolisms. We all have different insulin responses. We have all these things. And my point about this is it is a lazy learner question to say, just tell me what to do. Because you need to look inside, and that gets us to where we're going to go next. Somebody asked, it's funny because I put this out there, and the first thing somebody in the chat said is, you have cheating on there, right? And I said, well, yeah, because why? Lazy learners tend to cheat. They do, and you probably have met one. Has everybody ever run into a cheater? My best friend was one of the biggest cheaters ever, and he's now one of the best head, neck, and throat surgeons in the world. He had no problem cheating. He was able to justify it to himself. He had me type all his papers. He's a fantastic human being, by the way. But cheating was not his thing. He didn't care. He was like, I'd rather. By the way, he really, really worked hard for the learning that he did. He was not a lazy learner by any means. I just remembered him because cheating wasn't a problem for him. Since the internet, everybody cheats. So cheating is really just who looked it up faster, right? In fact, I had a class once where there were 14 people in the room, and I asked the people a question. I said, well, what is blah? And some snarky kid in the background, smiled the whole time, looked it up on Google on the big screen, and told me what it read off the screen. I said, excellent. And the other, 2 other kids like, he cheated. I was like, no, he didn't. He looked up faster than you. So the nature of cheating is changing. Right? The nature of changing. In fact, that boy who looked it up is much more of an autodidact, even though he's being called a cheater, than the other people who are just sitting there getting it wrong and looking for retribution. So I don't know. I have mixed feelings on this, but they tend to cheat. They tend to look for the shortcut because they really don't value the learning. In fact, in that case, he just spouted off the answer. He didn't really care to understand the answer. He was just spouting it off. Now that if you're researching it faster than the next guy or girl and you're answering and you understand the answer, then yeah, that's legit. Monkey see, monkey do, right? So, and this is a big one. How many know people? Let's see. Let's read this. There are 2 types of people that ask these kinds of questions. 1, the type of person that wants one thing but is too lazy to afford it, and 2, the type of person who wants so many different things that he can't put enough afford into a single thing. The type of person that wants one thing but is too lazy to afford. I'm talking about the people who ask those questions up above. Oh, right. Who wants so many different things that can't diverse enough to afford into one single thing. And that's true too. I think we're overly ambitiously think we can do all the things, and we have to limit ourselves, and we don't want to limit ourselves. If I ask that kind of question to me in my class, I'd be the first to look it up and wouldn't answer as I didn't like the attention. Well, you know the answer though, right? Because why? Because Lakshan, you value the learning, you value the knowledge, and that's really the important thing I'm trying to get the focus on here. So I'm almost done with this. There's not many more. They blame others for lack of learning, and this one kind of hurts to say. Seriously, how many? Too many hobbies. Focus at B2. I think I can do everything, and there's no way I can get to it all. Right? Does that mean I'm going to cheat and bypass the learning? And frankly, I'll tell you, this is why I'm a horrible hacker. People stopped watching me getting ready for my OSCP, doing Try Hack Me and Over the Wire, and Hack the Box, because why? It took me 2 weeks to do a hack. A simple hack, because I had to understand every piece of it. I have this to a fault. I have to understand all of the things. I can't just move on. And frankly, it causes me a lot of problems in life because I have to overanalyze things and understand them thoroughly and write about them before I can move on. So if anything, and I imagine there's people watching this out there who share that challenge of the obsession with understanding how things work before we can move on. At some point, you just have to kind of say, okay, I don't need to understand everything there. I just need to accept that it is and move forward in order to make progress. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, but I don't regret it. I wish I could just balance it better. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, they blame others for the lack of learning. So this happens a lot. People don't get into colleges. It's effort, not effort. Did I say it wrong? Where did I say effort? Oh, I thought maybe I said something wrong. Okay, so they blame others for the lack of learning. So a lot of times when you're a lazy learner, they're not learning, and they also have a little bit of cognitive dissonance, and so they blame their teachers. It's my teacher. I have the worst teacher ever. My teacher sucks. Oh, it's my school. The education system is so bad, I can't possibly learn anything. I know people who come out of horrible... I'm not going to disagree with you that a lot of education is broken. Obviously, I've talked about that a lot. So there are a lot of people who just they punt because the system is so bad. So they're so distracted by the fact that the system sucks that they can't learn despite the system. And the autodidacts are going to use that opportunity and use as many resources as they can, and they're going to learn anyway. And I'm going to put a challenge out there to the rest of you out there who are in college and courses and are stuck in the traditional education system. Don't do it. Okay, I'm gonna throw somebody under the bus here who shall not be named. I had a brilliant programmer who wrote his own. He managed his own clone of Agar.io server. Brilliant developer and programmer here, and it was very young. And he took AP Computer Science and failed it. Yeah, and I was so pissed off. Because, I take great pride in people that I help to mentor. And the reason that he failed it, which I'm going to take part of the responsibility for, is he thought that the class was so completely beneath him and horrible, and that the teacher was so disastrously bad that he was going to act out and say, I am not doing this. I refuse to do this. So, while I understand and I empathize with his situation, that is not an excuse to get a failing grade in something that you should have just owned. Having had the stream drop and keep it refreshed to get it started. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry if the low latency is up. I just started streaming. I'm gonna finish this and I'll restart the stream. So anyway, don't blame others for your lack of learning. Take responsibility. You're going to be dealing with struggles, and it's frustrating, and it's okay to vent and deal with it and call it out, particularly if it's corruption. But you know what? Don't go ahead and F is in English. Don't just give up, right? You blame it on your country, you blame it on the COVID virus. I can't learn because of COVID. I'm so depressed. Those are real things to be concerned about, but don't dwell on them. Don't look for excuses. Just own your laziness and move on. So Twitch has been having issues for the past few days. Yeah. I started college again after failing one, switch major from business to IT. I built my own website. So famously with the COVID thing, let's just put that out there. It's going to date this video somewhat. This is happening during the COVID crisis. But who was it? Newton. So Isaac Newton, uh, who self quarantined himself and everything, invented like gravity, and wrote a bunch of books and stuff. Was it Galileo? I can't remember. I think it was Newton though. It was Newton for sure. And he took his time. Obviously, he was privileged, so he had the ability to do that. There's a lot of people who couldn't do that because they were dead and they were living in the streets and they didn't have an opportunity to go out to their country house. I mean, so I'm not trying to downplay anybody's situation, but in his particular case, he was able to increase his learning and do something with that time. There's been memes going around about, well, we know what you did while you were gone, and people were coming out of COVID with six packs, and other people were coming out of discovered gravity. Right, yeah. Yeah, did I say invented? The fact that free video courses exist for most subjects is freaking amazing state of art. It really is. It really is. And I can tend to add as many as I can on my own. So sometimes it does hurt too much to realize how much you suck at learning. And so you have to blame something else. And if you find yourself doing that, don't. There, the lack of self-awareness, avoid. Now, this is kind of going to get metaphysical here. And I put these last two at the bottom on purpose. It's thanks to Newton that people don't float off into space anymore because he invented it. And otherwise, before then, we were all floating. Sorry, I got my words wrong. The lack of self-awareness and introspection. So you guys know that I try to be a yoga practitioner. I'm not good. That's why I do it, so that I can, check my ego and all the many things that I have to keep in check. That and coffee. So here, these last two are kind of interesting and a little bit bigger in scope. This is going to sound really mean, but it's true. They lack self-awareness, or they either lack it or they avoid introspection. So there's a couple cases that come to mind, and I don't even want to even allude to them even a little bit. Because I think it's just too risky for people to be as identified. There are people out there who, when you ask them the question, what do you want to do with your life? Now, not knowing what you want to do with your life, Baz Luhrmann famously in the Sunscreen song says, some of the most interesting 40-year-olds still don't know what they want to do with their life. So your life is a constant ongoing reinvention. But the values you are teaching today about a Twitch stream really impersonates the values you are teaching today. This channel is called, okay, great. We'll have to go watch that. Are the packages for Manjaro that allow users to switch between videos, a dual boot system? Well, that's a different question. We're talking about not that right now. Okay, so let's talk about this question. I know it's kind of metaphysical, and I don't promise not to dwell on it for a long time, and I'll turn the music back on so you guys can relax. I was a yoga instructor, so, got to think about those things, even though some days I need it more than others. You all know that. So here's what we're saying, guys. How's it going, guys? My laziness is if I afford on that thing, I can't fail like before. Ask myself, because I am a mechatronics engineer. Ooh. Delay and now endure X time to be happening job position. Ooh, yeah. Lazy people are quick learners, else they can't be lazy. And that, that's a real interesting alternative to this. There's a difference between being a lazy person and a lazy learner. Thanks for coming by, guys. I hope you're not abandoning BeginBot. I feel horrible. I didn't realize that I just, out of curiosity, clicked on him at the beginning of my stream. So self-inspection and introspection. So when somebody asks you, what job do you want? They say, should I get a certificate and go to this college? And should I learn, what language should I learn? And you ask them back, you say, I don't know. What do you want to do? I don't know what I want to do. Well, I can't answer what language you should learn and what university you should go to until you know what you want to do. And I go, well, how should I know what to do? So try things out. Go on an exploration, research things. A big part of what I am doing, you already suggested a channel, Egg Lakes. At this point, I think you might be a bot. Not having a plan opens me to infinite possibilities. I'm not saying not have a plan. What I'm saying is, allowing yourself to do different things. But I'm also saying that you need to at least kind of be asking yourself inside, what is it that I need to do? What are my needs? And assessing yourself. And a lot of people that I run into that fall under the lazy learner category have not even minimally asked the question about what direction they want to go in. And I'm going to give you an alternative to that. Somebody who just streamed off, Mr. Gabe. So Gabe came here, tried out lots of different things. I'm going to throw him under the bus since he's here. And in the course of several years, 5 to 7 years, has discovered exactly what he wants to do, to the point where he actually was able to critique the colleges he visited in order to identify the best college for the specific thing he wants to do. And so his over time, his awareness has come up so high, and his level of introspection. Now, his ego has gone with that, just like everybody else. Not a problem, by the way. It goes with it, right? Because so confidence can turn into ego. You got to be careful with that. But my point is that he knows what he wants, because he knows what his strengths are, and he's done his enough self-introspection and reviewed it, wondered about it, tested it, found out he didn't want to be a programmer. I had another guy who I won't describe him. You might recognize him. Another guy come here, very, very charismatic. And eventually one day he told me, he said, I just hate coding. I like technology, but I absolutely hate coding. I cannot sit in front of a screen. It makes me nuts. He can sit in front of a screen when he's like reading social media and interacting with people, but he could not sit in front of a screen and code. It made him crazy. He hated it. And so, but he learned that about himself during the process, and that doesn't make him lazy. It makes him lazy if he doesn't act on it, and then continues to do that. So I'm not trying to, this is a tough one to talk about, because it can be very personally offensive to people. It's like, you don't know who you are. Come back to me when you know who you are. And as a mentor, I've been, professionally mentoring people for years now. And this is something I've had to learn the hard way too, but it's something I really have to help other people develop, because if you can't develop that in your own mind, and in your own heart and soul, then you're going to have a hard time, steering your own ship, as you go along, and you're going to be pushed around by every wind and change of doctrine, James 1:5 in the Bible, because you don't have your own rudder set. And so that's important. Dream jobs. Nice. I never ever get the work that I wish. Yeah. So I watch Rob. Laziness of the moment. So in my doubts of laziness. Well, okay. So this is the last one, and then we'll leave this topic for now. I want this to be lighthearted, but yet, something you can take to heart, without beating yourself up. And that's what this last one is about. Okay. So, the truth is, learning to program is largely not about learning any specific language, but rather learning programming principles and paradigms. Completely, 1,000% agree, Mac. Figuring out who you are is hard for me. Yeah, I thought if I'm climbing up the wall on a subject I'm learning, I may well do it right. So I started to do rock climbing. Oh, nice. I wish I had started rock climbing when I was younger. I grew up in Utah, of all places. It's like rock climbing capital of the world, practically, besides Yosemite. And it depends on your climbing style. I would love to learn rock climbing. So that's a great side note. I have a great picture of my wife and I bouldering on our anniversary in Asheville. She's like totally ripped, hanging onto the wall. So awesome. Anyway, so depression and overconfidence. This is something, and I have a feeling that a lot of us deal with all the time, particularly those of us who try, and maybe we fight against. So there's two ways to get depressed and overconfident, right? One of them is, as Alan Watts says, viable clan member. He's not here right now, but he introduced me to Alan Watts. Thank you very much. And I listened to many of his, sort of audio, voiceovers? Excuse me. And one of the things that I really latched onto the most that he says, it is dangerous, is that one cannot experience pleasure without skill. And he uses the word skill to replace the word discipline. And basically what that's saying is, in his words, that pleasure is, enjoying something is directly associated with learning. So I'm going to go so far. I've been challenged on this topic. I've said before that the purpose of life is learning. And I'm not the only one. There's actually a YouTube series that's produced for learners, and they said the same thing in the first video. Now somebody challenged me with that, and they said the purpose of life is to enjoy life, and I think that's true. But I think learning is usually a big part of learning to enjoy life. And I gaming. One of the reasons gaming is so much fun for so many people is because it does require learning a skill. Now I'm going to say something you're not going to like, but a lot of gaming is junk food. Because why? Because it gives you all the hits of learning and creativity. You learned how to rocket jump. You learned all these little things. You've got that twitch. It's very satisfying to pull it off, and you get all the pleasure that comes from skill without having to invest a lot of time in learning. And please don't take me wrong. I mean, I know I was a Dota 2 player. You talk about learning, so there's a lot of learning involved. And I don't mean to say that gaming is not is for dumb people. I'm just saying that gaming can sometimes be more of a junk food hit that can be more fulfilled. More fulfilled through other means. So maybe, learning to code, maybe to learning to sing, maybe learning to take up an instrument. Maybe, my point is that there's the pleasure that comes from learning a skill is not specific to any one area. And some skills are faster to pick up and therefore give us a bigger hit. You know what I'm saying? Like I wish I could show you the time that I quad killed a whole team with Hammond on Overwatch by hitting him off the edge, and I was like so satisfied by that, and I had been practicing that skill for so long, so believe me, I get it. But is there some other skills that we can supplement that can give us that can counter our depression? Gamification definitely works. In fact, let me just tell you this right now. One of the reasons I've been reworking RWXGG is rather than having how-tos and tasks and skills and walkthroughs, I'm changing everything into challenges. And it's funny because I did that already. I did that 4 years ago. I made a Skillbot actual framework, and everything, all the learning that I was teaching here was all based on challenges. I give you a challenge. If I say, I got a challenge for you, like, okay, what is it? Right? And if you say, hey, go do these things, well, I don't care. Oh, here's the challenge. Oh, okay, here. So, and that's basically that's how the CTFs work. That's how Over the Wire works. All of that stuff works. No skill to aim at Hammond. I think you would agree that this one had skill because I had to stop myself before I went off the edge. It's pretty damn awesome. Yeah, no, Hammond is not a competitive hero at all. I promise. All right, your brain does need rewards, so find a way for you to reward yourself. Now, there's also people who don't need rewards because their confidence is so high that they actually have Dunning-Kruger, which means they don't think they need to learn anything. I'm not going to trash any specific person, but they think they have all the best words, and that kind of thing is what we're talking about doing. What's something I can do to learn better today? It can be anyone in the game. Slay one. Yeah, you probably could. Let's fight. So this has been a video. I'm going to wrap this video up now. Overwatch 2 is coming. Yes, that's true. I saw that. I haven't played Overwatch in 4 months. I haven't played any game in 4 months. I'm not better than you. I'm just saying I've been setting up the stream and doing stuff. I'm kind of rewarding myself by setting things up. A lot of people think Overwatch is dead. I don't. I think Overwatch is just fun. I don't ever play it competitively, or I'll rip my hair out because I would hate what everybody else is doing. It's just a new TF2 that doesn't hack you. Anyway, so enough talking about games. Maybe we go do some more gaming. Let's not be lazy learners, though. Let's make sure that we do the work to get our own learning. And get it going on. There's no right answer about how to check your own learning, other than to be looking inward and asking your own questions and doing your own research. And so yeah, just don't, and then the autodidact is the opposite of that. And maybe we'll talk about that in a separate video. We do need to have just a video about what the word autodidact means. I will give you a spoiler. An autodidact is not just a self-learner or a lifelong learner or an independent learner. Then yeah, if you don't think Dunning-Kruger applies to you, then you're the one they're talking about. What an autodidact is somebody who goes beyond and actually creates a plan for their learning. They document their learning, and they're constantly setting up. And we had somebody the other day say, it just feels like you're planning all the time. And you know what? That's fair. That's fair because I spent. And then they said, in fact, they said specifically, it just depends. It feels like my teachers are planning all the time, as if they're not doing anything by doing the planning. The better the planning, usually the better the execution. Not always. Sometimes we need to get out of the planning and start doing things, and then letting the doing kind of shape our planning. And that's the whole focus of agile sort of approach to code development and test-driven development, of course. Anyway, all of that stuff is coming up. We'll talk about that more later. We're going to talk about Autodidact. I'm going to go take a break now for those of you who are in our studio audience. But this will be up live soon enough. Meanwhile, thanks for stopping by, and we'll talk to you later.